On the evening of Friday, September 11th, 1987, 3 gunmen entered the home of a famous reggae musician at about 8:30 p.m. They shot the 7 occupants that were present after they refused to give up their money. One of the killers turned himself into the Kingston police only days later, following a warrant issued for his arrest. Of the deceased was Winston McIntosh, better known as Peter Tosh, a Jamaican reggae musician who performed along with Bob Marley and Bunny Wailer. He was one of the core members of the band, the WAILERS, after which he established himself a successful solo career and a promoter of the Rastafari. Whoa, like history no really change a yard, From ever since, we as Jamaicans try to stop our icons from being great. I mean, them a represent the country. They're loved internationally. Is it hate? A bad mind? Throughout the years, we've witnessed our own musical legends and icons become the prime target of assassination by people from our own country. When will it end? Peter Tosh, Bob Marley, O'Neill from Voicemail, Bogle, and there might be some that I've missed. Even our own sprinting legend Usain Bolt has been a target. Although he wasn't harmed physically, them still take a shot at his estate, which is just as embarrassing and just as bad. Peter Tosh was born in Westmoreland in 1944 and moved to Trenchtown, Kingston when he was 15. His life would ultimately change here when he learned to play the guitar. During the early 1960s, as an aspiring musician, Tosh went to see a vocal teacher, Joe Higgs, who gave free music lessons to young people. Through his connections with Higgs, Tosh met Robert Nesta Marley, better known as Bob Marley, and Neville Livingston, better known as Bunny Wailer. Learning how to play the guitar turned out to be a pretty useful skill. Tosh began playing with Bob Marley and Bunny in the early 1960s. Their debut single, Simadong, was an instant hit, and just like that, the band's career was up and running. Throughout the remainder of the decade, the group evolved from ska into more of a rock-steady sound. At the end of the 60s, world politics had everyone's attention, and the Wailers went after a new musical direction. This was slower than ska and rock-steady. This new sound combined smooth grooves with more socially relevant lyrics, and what we now recognize as modern reggae was born. In 1971, Tosh began pursuing a solo career while working with the Wailers. His debut single, Maga Dog, was a major hit. As the Wailers' international breakthrough started, Tosh had less and less time to devote to his solo career. So at the end of the 1973 Wailers tour, during high tensions with Bob Marley, Tosh quit the Wailers. There would be several reunion concerts over the next few years, but by 1975, the band was effectively over. In that same year, Tosh signed to the Columbia Records label in the US and began working on his first solo album. However, in 1976, he signed with the Rolling Stones record label and that summer toured the United States opening for Mick Jagger. We're gonna leave all our troubles behind. In 1987, Peter Tosh had a career revival when he was awarded a Grammy for Best Reggae Performance for his very last record, No Nuclear War. In that same year of 1987, in September, Tosh was in Jamaica at his Barbican residence in Kingston. Staying at Tosh's home during this time was an old friend of the Wailers, Dennis LOBBAN. While he was there, Dennis LOBBAN had apparently got into an argument with Tosh's girlfriend, Marlene Brown. He left in anger and then returned a few days later on September 11th, armed with a group of friends. The first to be fired on was the person he had the altercation with, Marlene Brown. At the time, she was Peter Tosh's manager, accountant, and girlfriend. Winston Doc Brown lost his life on the spot, and with Peter Tosh being hit multiple times, He passed on hours later at the University of the West Indies Hospital. In LOBBAN's defense, he claimed he had merely intended to threaten the artist and perhaps rob him, but panicked. The result was that Tosh and all 6 of his friends hanging out in the room were shot in the head. Of the 6 victims, 3 miraculously survived, including Tosh's girlfriend, Marlene Brown. And although we can never truly know what the motive behind this unnecessary killing, a police detective said that Mr. Tosh had just returned from the United States and the robbers had apparently thought that he had a large amount of cash with him. Another widely reported story is that Dennis LOBBAN, several years earlier, had taken the rap for Peter Tosh for gun possession seized in a roadblock. It was said that Peter Tosh was to take care of Dennis LOBBAN, who was recently paroled and went to Tosh's home for provision. Dennis LOBBAN was arrested and sentenced to death. According to the police commissioner, Dennis LOBBAN surrendered and 2 other men were interrogated but not named publicly. LOBBAN went to plead innocent during his trial, telling the court that he was drinking with his friends. He was ultimately found guilty by a jury of 8 women and 4 men and sentenced to death by hanging. His sentence was in 1995 and LOBBAN still remains in jail. Jamaica had forever lost one of its most talented artists. Tosh's legacy will live on forever, and since his death, a number of compilations have been done to keep his memory alive. He was a true leader whose music and message inspire people on every continent throughout the world. Thanks for watching.
Them come to kill Peter because them get paid for. Peter killing was a hit job and a robbery. And nobody can tell me on earth that them youth that just come to my house come rob away. No, it's bigger than rob away. Them search up the house. The house see one of them come back with Peter Billy, because Peter now sleep with a sharp Billy on them bed, you know. And you go over Peter head with the Billy motor and say, again, yeah, it's not it. It's about me to do you go, sir, over Peter head, chop off Peter head. I because I just jump up. I chuck him off of Peter, you know. So when I chuck him off of Peter, rush me now. Take him gun and butt me in my face, kick me up, kick me down the ground, and shot me in my head. Yeah. Shot me in my head now, so I lie down like me dead. And I say, you know something, Marlene? 5 strong Rasta man in your house, and not one of them lift up them hands for start or nothing. Lie down like you're dead.